Hey guys, it is November and the weather is cool and it is time to make your campfires. And man, do I have the project for you. Now, a lot of you guys have asked about what kind of things do I sell at my events and my tents. Well, I'm giving you all my trade secrets. So here is one of my best sellers. This is a blowpipe, and this not the dart blowing type. This is actually the fire blowing type. This is a historical piece. This is more associated with French Indian War, colonial period than it is Civil War, but this is a pretty cool piece. Now, originally, this was just a piece of sheet metal that was wrapped into a tube, and the idea is this compressed on one side, got a little bit of flare on this other side, so that instead of being in the very undignified position of having your face in the fire and your butt in the air, you can actually take this and blow into the fire and get your fire started. Has a little piece right here to hang on to, so you can hang it onto the wall. This is not a very complicated piece. This is not made from one piece of sheet. We actually cheat a little bit, and we use a piece of 3/4 inch tube to do this with. But this is a really handy item. It's a good selling item, and it's something that needs to be in your toolbox. So guys, hope you enjoyed the show. Here is the hand-forged blowpipe. We're going to use this 3/4 tube, and let me throw one caveat out at you guys, because understand the difference between tube and pipe. Now, a lot of people kind of use the terms interchangeably, but in the metalworking industry, they have very specific meanings. Pipe, for example, is usually measured by the inside diameter. So if I tell you I need 3/4 inch pipe, that means when you actually put the tape on the inside, it's measured by the inside cavity. So if the thickness of the wall is 1/8 of an inch, a 3/4 inch pipe will actually have an outside diameter of 1 inch. Okay? But if you get tubing, which this piece is, it is actually measured by the OD, by the outside diameter. So this is 3/4 inch round tubing, and again, it's measured from the outside. So if you go to a place like Lowe's or you go to actually a metal shop, you really need to make the difference between those two pieces of terminology. And this particular piece is 3/4 inch round tube. The more you know. So guys, what we're going to do is we're actually going to start on the front side of this guy. And this is where it gets kind of interesting, because what we want to do is we want to hammer this down into a smaller diameter. We want to make it so that you can actually compress the air, because right now what we have is just a blowpipe. You put a dart in this thing and get somebody right in the freaking jugular. But we want to narrow this thing down. We want to make a point with it. And the problem is, if we're too aggressive with it, we don't want it to crush. We want it to actually just thicken up. And we're going to use our swage block in addition with a little bit of heat and a light hammer to start just working this down very slowly. This is almost very similar to raising a vessel when you're doing a cup or a pitcher and you're actually bringing the metal in and making it thicker. So that's where we're going to start. I'm going to get my swage block, my small swage block up on top of my anvil, take a little bit of heat, and I'm going to show you how we're going to start bringing this guy down. So let me get set up, and we are good to go. So guys, one caveat I want to put at you on this end of it is that this is a piece of pipe and not a piece of solid. So when you cram this thing down in your fire, if you've got a really heavy air blast, especially if you're using a gas forge, remember, it's actually going to blow that heat right through the end of the pipe. So you need to watch the other end of it. I mean, that end is live. It's not like working a piece of solid. And also remember that it's very thin. So if you're using a coal forge, be very careful about your heat, because it's going to cook really fast. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the end hot like this, and then we're going to go to our swage block. I'm going to choose a piece that's kind of about the same size, and notice how small a hammer that I'm using. And I am just tapping this guy. If you get aggressive with it and really smack it like this, you see it flattening out, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're wanting to shrink it and constrict it, and it's going to be a slow tapering process. But you can see we've already made some headway with that first heat. So we're going to just continue to do this, taking our heats. Let's take another heat. This really is not a difficult project. In fact, it's a little fun. I always enjoy doing these guys. These are great money makers, especially if you're dealing with the Boy Scouts or anybody like that. This is a really, really handy thing to have on your table when you're selling stuff. Now, as you're working, one of the things you're going to have to do is kind of come back behind the area that you're working and thin this just a little bit as well. And that's actually done better a little cold. But you can see we're getting that good shape starting to form. And we're going to just keep working this guy down until we bring this down to about 1/8 of an inch in diameter. Or the hole itself, rather. We are reducing it. Spent a lot of years with the Boy Scouts and, you know, being kind of an outdoorsy kid on the plantation. You know, I can't tell you how many campfires I started, and inevitably, no matter how good you are, you're going to get a face full of smoke, and your eyes are going to sting and hack and cough, and there's just no way to look cool when you do that. The first time I saw one of these guys used at Andersonville, man, my whole world changed. I was like, I too can look cool while starting my campfire. Now, the really neat thing is that as this thickens up, and you can see that wall thickening, it gets a lot easier to shrink it without deforming it. Begins to work a lot more like solid than it does hollow as it gets smaller. All right, again. There's a lot of processes that can be done in a heat or two, you know, and you really don't have to be delicate, you know, or slow with it. This is not one of those pieces. This is one of those situations where you're doing just a little bit at a time. If it takes you 5 or 6 heats, that's perfectly okay. Now, you can see we're down, we're less than 1/4 of an inch at this point. You can test it out. You want to be able to build a little pressure in this guy, so not quite as much as I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down one more time. By narrowing that front end, you can actually make a really forceful little stream of air, which is really what you want for starting your campfire. You want to be able to get some back pressure on that bad boy. One more round ought to get it. All right, she is now down to a little more than 1/8 of an inch. Let's try it. That's what I'm looking for. There we go. So that's going to be our front end. Now, quick heads up. When you get ready to quench this bad boy, remember that it is pipe. So when you plunge this front end down in there, all the crap's going to shoot out the back. So don't have your face down looking at it going, it will not be a good day. Okay, we're good to go there. But now on this other end, whereas you could actually make it work this way with no problem, we're actually going to take this in and we're going to flare it out. Again, we're going to use a swage block, but instead of the little hammer, we're going to go down to a ball peen. I just want to flare this edge out, make a place where you can put your lips and do all that kind of good stuff. So right back in the fire, and let me grab a ball peen. This is really a little hammer project. In addition to that sheet metal hammer I was using, we're going to use the tiny ball peen because of this guy right here. We're going to use the same slot on the swedge block because this time, instead of compressing that in, we're going to flare it. Basically, I'm going to put about 1/4, 3/8 of an inch over the edge of the swedge block and start knocking the edge out and stretching it. You can see there's our first swedging out. We're going to take one more heat and continue to work on that. Now once I've kind of opened it up where I want it, then I'll come in with this flat and start evening this up. Now, you don't have to make it perfectly flat. You just, like I said, you want the flare to be relatively even. You don't want it to be nasty. And there's what you end up with. So now you have a functional blowpipe here, but most of the ones I've always seen never just the pipe. They usually have some sort of ring attached to it where it can be held or hung up. The ones that I have seen Jay make, or what they would do, or what he would do rather, is you would come in about right here, a couple inches down from the top, and he would incise a small groove, which is what we're going to do. We're going to use a swage, an anvil swage, to actually put a little groove right around here. Not too deep, just something where we can take a piece of metal and twist it and it gets a good grip. Alright, here's our anvil tool. You can see this is kind of just, it's not spring loaded or anything. But again, because you're dealing with the pipe, you want to be very, very light with this. You don't want to use the heavy hammers. You just want to coax this because you don't want to crush the pipe. But I'm going to pop this bad boy in here, like I said, about 4 inches down. And I'm going to start making that groove. You can see the little waste going in there. I'm going to do it just a little bit more. And with this, you actually get a little more effective at the cooler it gets. The pipe was going to resist crushing. And there we go. There's our groove. Looks good. Okay, let's cool this bad boy off. Okay, so guys, what we're going to do now that we have our little groove here, I don't think that the ones that were historical were ever welded or riveted on there in the version that we're going to be doing here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of 1/4-inch rod and I'm going to make a ring that's about 3 inches in diameter, maybe a little bit more. I'm tinkering with this. I'm going to make the ring, forge weld it together, and then I'll put the entire ring around this top. And then right here on the groove, I'll actually pinch it to the groove and then twist it like a bread tie, hopefully tightening it down enough so it won't play or rattle around. So let's make our ring real quick. Now, if you guys are not familiar with this, you know, when we make our lock rings for our tongs, same idea. We're going to use the mandrel to actually make the loop, cut it, and then fuse it right here on the end. Shouldn't take long. And here we go, guys. Start by making the ring over the horn of my anvil. Going to take one more quick heat right here to go ahead and bring it all the way around. And that'll be a good size ring for what we're going to do, so I'll throw in my cutting hardy real quick and trim her off. Another heat, of course. There she is there. Take our tongs, and then we're going to prep the edges to actually weld them up. Spread these guys out just a little bit, and then I'm going to go to the horn of the anvil and overlap them real quick. Now again, that's the kind of the joy of the 1/4 inch here. You can do a lot of work with this without a lot of heat. Now you can see I've got the ring overlapped. I'm going to flux it, and then we're going to fuse it. There's our initial weld. Not going to push my luck, so I'm going to come in, reflux it, and we're going to take our second weld. All right, she's looking good. Again, just want to work that weld clean. Okay, guys, here's our ring. It's not perfectly round. It doesn't really matter. But my weld's on the bottom, and so what I'm going to do now is I'll heat this whole guy up, come around here, use my tongs to crimp it to the blowpipe, and then actually twist this guy, hopefully working over there on the vise. Now, this is really tricky to do by yourself. So this may take a little bit of doing. It's very, very handy to have somebody in the shop with you holding the blowpipe or manipulating it while you work on this guy. But we're going to try to make it happen here. So let me get this set up. I'm going to go throw this in the vise, and let's see what we can make happen. Okay, guys, here we go. This goes over the piece here. I'm going to take my tongs, hopefully be able to squeeze it to make it cinch, just like that. And then, before I lose my heat, take it and holy crap, it worked the first time. I'm not believing it. Let me show you what we got, fellas. There you go. Now let's take a scrub brush, get her cleaned up, and let's take a final look at our blowpipe. Put a little heat on the whole thing, guys, so what I'm going to do is come in, scrub away a lot of this oxidation. And she ain't looking half bad. Not at all. So let's cool her down and get a finish on her and see how she turns out. Now there's a couple things you can do to finish this. Normally when you're working with this guy, because you've only worked the two ends, you're going to have a dark end and a dark end, where it's obviously cooked. The center will be a little slick. If you really want to be a purist about it, what you can do is go in and put a complete finish on this, just like a lot of the other fireplace tools that we do. Just depends on how fancy you want to get and how far you want to take it. It's obviously going to get a little darker with age, but you can, even just wiping it down as is, makes a pretty attractive piece. And so, of course, the proper way to operate this guy is you take it like a pistol grip, and there's your blowpipe. It also doubles as a poker, so you can root around in the fire of that bad boy and just, for no apparent reason, put more air on the fire. Handy little tool. These guys are great sellers when you're at a show. Most people don't know what they are, so if you have something like this, you always want to have a little fire close by so you can just, when people walk by, you can lean over and go, because they're not going to ask you what it is. You kind of have to demonstrate it. But man, let me tell you, if you do a lot of camping or you work a campfire or you have a fireplace, this is a really nice little item to have. And it's historical. Cool stuff. So guys, there you go, your very own handmade blowpipe. This is one of our stock items, so hey, I'm giving you away the secrets to the tent. Hope you enjoyed it, guys, and I will see you same place right here next week. You guys be good. And send her flying off into the nowhere to possibly catch something on fire. Don't you love live TV?